It is refreshing to find members of Congress who are focused on solving problems and not just winning political battles with the other party. On Friday, the national average for the price of a gallon of gas reached $3.90. That's the average. And at gas stations in some states, the price is over $5 a gallon. Over the past week, President Obama said there is no quick solution to rising gas prices, while also urging Congress to eliminate tax breaks for oil companies. Now, earlier, I spoke to Democratic Congressman from Oklahoma, Dan Boren, and Republican Congressman from Illinois, Robert Dole, both critical of the president's energy policy. Let's talk about high gasoline prices because they're out of sight. It's affecting Americans in a dramatic way. Congressman Dole, you have said that there are 4 specific things that we need to do as Americans to bring these gas prices down for the people. What are they?
Well, Governor, thank you so much for the opportunity, and we do have a plan to try to bring things down. First thing is that we need to send a green light to American innovators. We need to talk about extending tax credits for renewable energies, for wind, solar, hydro, you name it, which are set to expire in 2012 and 2013. We also need to be talking about ending the 17 different monopolies of boutique fuels across the country and have the cleanest fuel, a singular fuel that can be used across the country so that one particular area won't be harder hit if those runs start to run short. The other thing that we need to do is we need to explore natural gas. Here in the United States, we've got literally trillions of cubic feet of natural gas that are right now going untapped that we need to absolutely get after and start to explore. And finally, we need to talk about putting the Gulf back to work, talk about getting the drilling operations back up and going so we can start to rely more upon the United States as opposed to foreign nations for our fuel sources.
Before I leave that, you talked about the boutique aspect of fuel blends. In this country, we have a significant number of localized blends, and it adds to the cost. So I want to make sure that our viewers understand that that is a big difference between, let's say, the United States and Mexico, where people are now driving south of the border to get gasoline because it is significantly less expensive because of the blends. Tell me why this is important. Who puts this rule in place? Who has the authority to get rid of it?
Right now, there's 17 different fuel blends, at least that, and there's in essence 17 different monopolies that are run through the federal government. And for instance, here in the Chicagoland area, we have the Chi-Min blend. And if for some reason a refinery were to go down, our fuel prices would skyrocket. They're already one of the highest fuel prices in the land. Is right over here on the corner. Fuel prices are at $4.40 a gallon. So if we can, in essence, create one fuel blend that's used across our country, we'll be able to share different reserves from different areas of the country, be able to hopefully drop those costs down. It's certainly, I think, a common sense solution.
Congressman Boren, I want to read a statement that you've made this week, and it's bold. President Obama is completely uninformed about the oil and gas industry. For every CEO of a major company, there are literally thousands of blue-collar jobs that are affected by his administration's energy policy. If the president doesn't want to stand up and be a leader, then his silence would be appreciated from people who are trying to find solutions. Congressman, that is a bold statement. If a Republican made it, it is exceptionally bold that a Democrat made it. What led you to say something so clear?
Well, I'm extremely frustrated. You know, the president goes out, gives a speech about, these big oil companies making large profits, and he doesn't realize most of the production in the United States does not come from the major companies. It's the small independent companies, some in Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana. We've got a lot of production. 90-some-odd% of the new wells that are being drilled in the United States are by small independent firms. And he's talked about taking away subsidies. Well, let me tell you what, the big major oil companies, they can't take, it's against the law for them to use depletion. The small companies, the mom and pop shops, are using these incentives to wean ourselves off of foreign oil.
Has the White House responded to what you have said? And if so, what have they said to you? Or have they just asked you to be quiet?
They've been silent. I think they realize that they're on the wrong side of this. We are the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. We've got more natural gas than we've had for generations. We have an over 100-year supply. It is the silver bullet to wean ourselves off of foreign oil. But if we let the EPA, people like Administrator Jackson, have their way, we're going to lose more jobs. Places like Pennsylvania, let me tell you, a swing state like Pennsylvania, where the only economic driver right now are the oil and gas companies handing out those lease bonuses. Let me tell you what, those folks need to know that this president and this administration is doing everything in its power to shut down the oil and gas industry. American-made jobs, blue-collar jobs, and yes, a lot of Democrats are in the oil and gas industry. It's not just the big CEOs that you think about. I mean, there are a lot of hard-working folks, people that carry lunch buckets that have voted for this president in the past that need to know his policies are not in line with where they are.
I want both of you to stay with me. This is a refreshing kind of scene to see a Democrat and Republican talking about solutions, not just firing darts at each other. And we're going to get into some of those solutions and some of the obstacles to those solutions when we come back with these two congressmen. Stay with us. Congressman Dole, this past week there was a significant story that came out of New Mexico and Texas. The Fish and Wildlife Service of the United States is thinking about shutting down all exploration because they're fearful that it might disturb the habitat of a lizard. Now, I'm not against lizards in their place, but we're talking about the destruction of a lot of jobs and moving up the price of energy. So what is it that you can do as a congressman, and what should the rest of America be concerned about when we have agencies that are trying to shut down the very processes to get energy out of the ground?
What we need to be doing, governors, we need to be talking about exploration. We need to be looking at it in a reasoned and measured way. The dune sagebrush lizard, which I think is the lizard they're talking about, is about to be delisted off of the endangered species list. So it may be one of those things that might not be an issue, and I certainly hope it's not. Because what we are talking about is jobs and the economy, trying to make sure that we're weaning our dependence from foreign oil and trying to make sure America is energy independent. And those are the things that we're going to need to do, especially down in New Mexico, which is sitting on a very, very large reserve.
You know, we talk about endangered species, and I do understand that, and I'm not an anti-environmental guy. But I'm thinking that American...
I'm sure the congressman isn't either.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking American jobs are on the endangered species list, and American families who can't pay these expenses. Congressman Boren, another issue that happened this week, and I know that you're aware of it, Shell Oil walked away from a $4 billion investment in Alaska. That's how much money they've already spent. They had everything lined up. And the EPA says, no, you're 70 miles from a little village of 245 people, and so you can't put this here. And now they're going to take the jobs, they're going to take the $4 billion investment and walk away from it. This is insane.
It's ridiculous. And, you know, the fact that we're competing in a world market, you look at countries like the Chinese, they're making investments, they're building refineries. We haven't built a refinery in the United States since the 1970s. We've got to be able to compete in this world market. We can't do that if we've got policies coming out of this administration that you know, will do everything in their power to stop development, whether it's you know, those investments by Shell, whether it's other places to drill. You know, we've got a lot of public land in the United States that's not open, and they talk a good game. But when it comes down to it, they don't want us to produce any fossil fuels. The bad part about it is, you know, Americans are going to pay more at the pump because of these policies, not because of the oil and gas companies, but because of the policies that they put in place.
Congressman Dole, let's talk about some of the specifics of the legislation that you want to see Congress pass. Tell me what would you do, and what kind of reaction do you get, not only from people of the Republican Party, but obviously Congressman Boren from Oklahoma gets it. How many other supporters from the Democratic Party do you also start seeing for energy policies?
Well, certainly those along the Gulf Coast, I think, understand. They've been exposed to it for a long period of time. Some of the legislation that's going to come out of the House, I think, even this next week, as we get back into session, is going to be a bill coming from Doc Hastings, who's the chair of the Natural Resources Committee, talking about putting the Gulf back to work. And what they're trying to do is put a timeline on, you know, in essence, the moratorium that is in theory still in place because they haven't gotten the go-ahead for the permits to go back and drill. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to open that up, put a timeline on it, so that in essence, the Secretary of the Interior can indeed get them back to work, so they're not sitting on them and delaying them, slow walking them forward. That's something that has to happen because we literally have empty rigs that are sitting in the Gulf right now that should be producing oil for the United States.
I do support Chairman Hastings' legislation. I serve on the Natural Resources Committee. I will be voting for it when it comes to the floor.
Well, Congressman, I want to thank both of you for being here today, giving us some real common sense and practical solutions. There are a lot of Americans out there who are squeezing the handle on the gas pump this weekend, and they're looking at those incredible prices that are inching up toward $5, and that means they don't take a vacation, they don't go see Grandma. It's going to cost them more to get to work every day. Thank you for looking at this from a bipartisan approach and trying to really bring some solutions to both of you. Thank you, and have a great weekend, and go get them out there on Capitol Hill.